Hello and welcome. This is Laerun with the Fantasy Grounds Academy. I'm going to go over a little bit more of the ChatGPT Open AI application. What I'm doing now is I've gone to the Fantasy Grounds forums, and I did put this link in the description, so after the video you can go back to it, refer to it. But essentially, Matacure created a couple posts here that has all of the main verbiage and string data to parse in Fantasy Grounds. So if you're trying to create content for player characters, this might be the thing for you. I went ahead and fed this information into the AI so that it has a basis to work with. I don't know if it actually helps or not, but it actually defines a lot of the different parameters or the words that you need to put into Fantasy Grounds in order to get this sort of stuff to work and to be useful for you in the Fantasy Grounds Unity platform in regards to the D&D 5e rule set. So I don't know if this type of documentation exists for other rule sets, but in the case of D&D 5e, it is something that is important, especially if you plan on creating custom content or homebrew material and you want to take advantage of the actual automation. So this is some of the things, or most of the things, that you'll come across when you want to create data for characters. So also, I've stored this information in a PDF so that I have it handy, so that way if I need to refer to it, it's on my computer and I don't have to go all the way to the website. So that may be something you want to do later for yourself, is to kind of copy and paste this data into a Word document, especially, or in a PDF, especially if you're going to be creating content in the future for Fantasy Grounds. It's really helpful. So the next thing I want to do is go to the actual ChatGPT OpenAI, and what we're going to do is I'm going to go through the steps I've done here. So I gave this, I'm calling this the Fantasy Grounds Unity D&D 5e PC template, and what I'm doing is I set up some definitions here just in case, and then I copied and pasted all that data in here, which is related to character creation. And there is a caveat about this, that this homebrew data that you might be setting up may not work with the current version of the character builder for the D&D 5e rule set. So you'll have to use the drag and drop method until SmiteWorks finishes the updates for that particular tool. So again, this does not work with the official character wizard or character builder, because it's not quite ready for that. But nonetheless, you can create your own content in Fantasy Grounds. So with Fantasy Grounds Open, I'm actually using the Baron theme. That's what this theme is, in case you wanted to know. So I'm going to go ahead and come through here and make sure I have at least the core rules loaded, which I do. And then I'm going to also I'm going to go ahead and open up a section here. So this is in the character section over here on the right. I want to go ahead and load my pointer again, because I know that sometimes it's hard to see what I'm clicking on. So, okay, so over here on the right, I got the character area expanded, and I'm going to focus on races for right now. And essentially, you can make a sub-race, or you can make a complete new base race if you want to. It's a lot easier to create a sub-race when you are building in Fantasy Grounds than it is to create a whole new race. But there is some new tools that you can use to create and generate races. So there's an import tool that you can use in Fantasy Grounds. Now, if you paste the race here, formatting is not preserved, so you have to keep that in mind with your formatting. And you want to copy and paste it in here, and hopefully it will recognize the content that you're putting in here. As long as you're following this actual text data in here, it should help with the parsing. You might have to edit your text a little bit to get it to work, but essentially this is going to be importing a race. So what I'm going to do in the ChatGPT is, now that I've defined most of the parameters that's needed for creating character-facing content, is I went ahead and hit enter, and I wasn't really expecting anything, but what I got is the OpenAI responded to that, even though I didn't ask it anything, and said, it seems that you are providing a list of phrases that are used in Fantasy Grounds, a virtual tabletop application, to interpret and automate certain behaviors in the game of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. These phrases pertain to different aspects of character creation, such as increasing ability scores or granting proficiency in certain skills or weapons. It is also mentioned that certain traits or feats will automatically modify certain calculations or behaviors in the game, such as the tough feature will add hit points, or the powerful build trait will modify your encumbrance calculations as if the character were one size larger. It is important to use the specific phrases listed in order for Fantasy Grounds to properly interpret and automate these behaviors in the game. This is really cool that it actually pulled that data from here or from the internet or from the past, and it was able to do it. So it's actually pulling on information from 2021 back. So if you feed it anything brand new that just came out, it's not going to know much about it. But anything from 2021 back, it's going to have a pretty good understanding of what you're asking or what you're providing. So what I'm going to do here, based on this information, is I'm going to ask this particular app to create a custom race based on the parameters from here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask it. I'm going to say, can you generate a custom D&D 5e race using the, what did I call this? It was a template. Using the Fantasy Grounds Unity PC template data. And the official D&D 5e PC race formatting. So I did that because I wanted to make sure I'm asking it a very specific question. And then I'm going to say, instead of just saying a custom D&D race, I'm going to say a custom, I'll say aquatic race, just so we can theme it instead of just making something very random. I want an aquatic type new race that I can play in the rule set. So can you generate a custom aquatic D&D 5e PC race using the Fantasy Grounds Unity D&D 5e PC template above? I'll just say template. And the official D&D PC race format. So then I'll put a question mark up there. So we'll see if it understands what I'm asking it. So if I go ahead and hit this, and hit OK or whatever, and send that chat in there, it's going to say, sure, here's the race. So it says aquatic race. All it's going to do is give me a basic title. I can call it whatever I want. But it is starting to generate a basic aquatic race for me based off of the criteria that I had given it before. So it is kind of building that. There's a sub-race or in there where it's a mermaid or merman. So this, and it got a network error. So this happens occasionally. So if that happens, you can try to regenerate the response. And then it'll continue or even start over. But nonetheless, it's something that happens with the open AI occasionally. There will be a blurb for their server. But essentially, you have some of these other race things that it will calculate. So it looks like, wow, it's even doing like a squid race. So your swimming speed increases to 50 feet. Okay, so what it seems like is that it kind of fouled that initial question. So I'm going to ask it again, and I'm going to just copy and paste the data and see if it'll give me something better without timing out or having an error. That happens occasionally. It doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. So okay, it's trying it again. So while it's doing that, I just wanted to let you know that I created a new chat or a new conversation, and I'm going to keep it all to do with player character data. I'm not going to do NPCs in there and that sort of thing. I'll create a new thread for that. So that way it's all kind of related and it doesn't have a mixture of all that different data. Because if you give it too much data or too much scattered information. It gets confusing, and it really makes things difficult, and it will add different content that you don't want and stuff. So it can be annoying. So yeah, so you can be a merman or a mermaid or an octopod. So those are the sub races from this aquatic race. It's kind of cool. So you're like a squid or an octopod. And I want to see if there's anything else. So it stopped at jet propulsion. So if you suspect that it's not done writing, or if it stops in the middle, type proceed or continue, and it will add anything you want, or it'll continue if it needs to. Nope, it's good. So this is all the information that you would copy and paste into the race data. So I'm going to take this. Let's see if I can. Okay, so what I want to do is take this aquatic race, copy and paste, and then I'll use it in Fantasy Grounds in the race area. So let me copy this and go to the Fantasy Grounds, and I'll put Control V in here. And now hopefully this will help. Let's see if it's gonna. Yeah, so I right-clicked it just to see what this is gonna look like. So aquatic race. So it has all these statements in here. So I want to see if it will actually parse this, because sometimes it will, sometimes it won't, depending on how this text is formatted. But to me, it looks pretty close. Like it looks like the text is correct. So I'm going to click import, and we'll see what we get. So it did write out this content. It looks pretty good here. But see, you're still going to have to build this. So I don't know exactly what it's expecting in that case. But it didn't look like it parsed it all the way. But at least you have the starting point. And then anytime you need to create something, you can refer to this and then copy and paste it from the main area to the traits area. So you have to build your traits. I don't know if this was meant to build the traits or not. I haven't used the race import function, but it does look like this is created correctly. Maybe there's something I'm missing here, but for the most part, it did import it, and it did list everything, but it didn't quite give me the output that I was looking for. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and try to do a custom class. So instead of a race, let's do a custom class. So here's classes, and let's do a specialization based off of whatever. So if you do a specialization, does it have an import function? Let's see. No, it doesn't. But you could have it type out the data so you have it, and then you just build from there. So let's go back to the chat and let's ask it to create something. So I'm going to say, can you create a custom? We'll do that. So I'll say, can you create a custom oceanic? I'll say oceanic themed D&D 5e. Let's see, oceanic. I think this would work really well if you're going to make PDFs too, because it kind of spells it all out for you. So custom oceanic themed D&D PC class. Using the Fantasy Grounds Unity D&D 5e PC template and the official D&D 5e class format. See what it does. So can you generate this? Yes. So it's going to be an oceanic themed D&D 5e PC class. Maybe I want to say something like spellcaster, or I'll say make this a maybe a bard, or based off of one of the four main things. So let's go with maybe a warrior class or something kind of simple. Or actually, let's do a spellcasting class. So let's go with a, we'll just say spellcaster class. So it can be anything that can cast spells essentially. So let's see what it does. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. See if it actually recognizes it. Okay, so it says, yeah, so Oceanic Spellcaster. So it's got 1d6 hit die per Oceanic Spellcaster level. It's given us the starting proficiencies, the equipment. So it looks like it's doing pretty good, depending on what you're asking it to do. So it's actually writing out the main context of it, and you can obviously substitute some of the data here after you paste it in. But it does pretty much give you what you want. I mean, it's saying, 2 first level spells, water walk. I mean, it's giving you a bunch of themed and anti-themed spell lists for this particular class. So it's pretty cool. It's actually building. So it might not be quite done yet. So I'm going to do proceed. I want to see if there's any more that needs to be written. Looks like it kind of stopped in the middle. We'll see. Nope. But that's basically it's done. So I want to take this data and copy and paste it. And so it's pretty much built an entire class for you. It's done all the heavy lifting, or all the typing at least, for you. So let me go back into Fantasy Grounds. And this is a new class specialization. No, it's actually a whole new class. So I'm going to go in here and pull this up. Hit Control V. Oops. Yeah, so you would have to essentially kind of go in and build this out, but you do have all of the starting points for it, and you can modify it as needed. And then like this thing here would go up into the class area for the description. And then this thing here would be basically you can make this a bold area. And then all this would just be defining, what you need for this particular class. And then when you go to the other tab, you would put in that data that it generated. So you can copy and paste the content from here into the other tabs, and that will give you your new class. So that's a really quick way to generate some kind of specific class that you're trying to build. And it has all these extra spaces in here, so that might also be a problem in some cases when it's trying to parse the data. So you might have to play around with the formatting a little bit, but nonetheless, it looks pretty good. Like it gives you the spell list, so it will look pretty professional once you're done creating this. So there's the Oceanic Magic, so you can turn these into headers. I'm using the shortcut Control 2. Maybe I'll make this bold and make this bold. Yeah, so it looks pretty professional. Like it seems to look very well formatted. And once you have this data, it's just a matter of plugging it into the other tab in this case. So here's your first level spells. So this is pretty neat. It gives you a kind of a head start on creating content. So it doesn't do everything for you. You still have to do some of it, but at least when you're feeling creative and you don't have the time to type all this out, this could be handy for that. It's definitely something you can use as a tool to help you create content. It's not gonna, like I said, you got to put in some effort too, but essentially it would take a lot less time to build this Oceanic Spellcaster, unless you're not a very good typer and you're not familiar with Fantasy Grounds. This will help a little bit. It kind of gives you a better idea of how things should look and the way it should be formatted. So this isn't bad. This actually gives you the data. So now what you could do is ask for a spellcasting table to have it build that. So you have this as well. So this looks like a half caster or maybe a 3/4 caster. So it's a 1d6 hit die, and it gets, let's see. Okay, yep. So I don't know when, 2 first level spells. I don't know when it gets this particular trait, but from what I can tell, it looks more like a a 1/3 caster, which means that it would get its spell casting abilities around, second, third level, around third level, essentially. So and it has a limited spell list. So I think this would be a good, like, 1/3 spellcaster and not a full-on spellcaster, essentially. So this, let me see if I can get it to give me at least a spell list of what with the progression level for it would be similar to like a bard or like a one of those type of things. So let me see if the GPT can handle that. So if I go back to the page, I'm going to take the spell list. I'm going to say, okay, so I want to take and edit this. And I'm going to say, with the data above, can you please build a spell casting table for each level up to level 20 for the oceanic spellcaster as a 1/3 spellcaster that gains the spellcasting trait at level 3. So this is, I'm kind of giving it some parameters so that I want it to kind of build a table. With the data above, can you please build a spellcasting table, spellcasting progression table? Because I want it to show me for each level up to level 20 for the oceanic spellcaster as a 1/3 spellcaster that gains the spellcasting feature at level 3. We'll see if it can handle it. It may not, but certainly here it is. So it looks like it's just rebuilding the. It kind of gives you some of the. So it's based on wisdom. So we'll see what happens. How it. We'll see what it does. It's still creating something interesting nonetheless. So it may not be. I might have to take this and ask it to build the actual progression table. Because it's kind of going to giving me the text. I want it to format this more in the table format. But this is a useful information because you have all this up to level 20. So this is a little bit excessive though. So you got to be kind of careful what you're asking it. In this case, I kind of goofed up. I should have been a little bit more specific, but it is giving me all of the different, the progression. So I might ask it to convert this into a table so that it's more useful, more visually useful than just spelling this whole thing out. Because this isn't helpful to read. It's better in a chat format. So it's actually stopped because it kind of times out after so long, but I'm going to ask it to proceed. And okay, so here's the rest of it. Yeah, so level 15. Yeah, so it's going through every single level and spelling it all out as a list instead of a table. And that's kind of cool, but it's not really useful for when you're playing in a game. So you might, or when your players are building characters, that's not exactly what you want. But it's made everything up to level 20, so at least you have that. And then I'm telling it to proceed so that it finishes up because it doesn't want you to tie up the server with these huge whopping requests, so you got to be careful with that. It'll time out on you and it'll get mad at you and stuff. So okay, so it built everything. I'll just say what I'm going to do is copy and paste this command. And what I want to do is kind of rephrase this. So can you generate let's see. I want to say, can you generate a spell casting progression chart and table for the oceanic spellcaster in a table format. Let's see if it can you generate a spellcasting progression table and although I don't even want a chart, I just want the table. Okay, let's do that, because if I say chart, it might end up giving me all this stuff too. So let's see what it does. So for the, or based on the PC class, now I'll just say for the, if that helps. Sometimes if you're not specific enough, it won't do anything. It may not even know what the heck I'm talking about. But I think it will. So yeah, it looks like it's trying to. That's good. Yeah, it's building the table. So that's exactly what I wanted. So that's really cool, because now I can copy and paste that data into a PDF or into some format that I can use. I'll still probably have to build that table in Fantasy Grounds. I'm wondering if that one import tool works. There's one for rollable tables, but then there's one for inline tables. It's an extension on the Fantasy Grounds forums. I have to see if it's still active or if it still works, but essentially would build this data for you so that it's useful to you, and it makes it a lot quicker for typing reasons and such. That looks pretty good. I mean, that's exactly what I asked it to do. That's really nice. So this is, I'm going to give them feedback. So what happens is when the community responds, even though I don't have to do this, I give them good feedback so that it improves the engine, and they will make changes based off our feedback. So every once in a while, when I get something good, I'll provide the platform feedback. And if I'm getting too much stuff I don't want, then that's another way to communicate too. But I like how it spelled all this stuff out, and then it was able to manage to build this spell progression list. So this is really cool. So it went up to 4th level spells, and then it went to level 20. So it is definitely a 3rd caster. It's not a full-on spellcaster. So I can imagine at the first 3 levels of this character, it would be kind of weak. It only has a D6. So I'd probably have to come up with some kind of features that would help, maybe give it advantage on swimming checks and that kind of thing, and then give it I would change the equipment. Instead of a quarterstaff or a dagger, since it's an oceanic spellcaster, I'd probably go ahead and keep dagger, but I might give it a spear, only because it's really hard to swing a quarterstaff underwater. So maybe actually give it a net. It would be interesting, or some kind of kelp whip, or so not kelp whip, but something that you can jab with, because using this underwater would not be a very good fit for this. So I would change the starting equipment. Instead of a quarterstaff, I'd probably make that a spear. Just a spear, probably. I don't think he needs a dagger, but you can add that if you want. A component pouch or arcane focus. I'd probably say arcane focus, because a pouch probably wouldn't stand up to water very well. And then for this part, for diplomat or explorers, I'd leave that alone probably. The oceanic magic is you gain it from the depths of the sea and the mysteries of the ocean. Your spellcasting ability is wisdom of 8. So it's kind of almost like a subclass of a druid, I guess, is kind of like what this is. So it's pretty neat. And this is all was made by the AI. I didn't do anything other than ask it to make an oceanic-based spellcaster. And I just gave it the parameters above, so I fed it all of the data above, just so it has this information for parsing reasons, just in case. And then once I build the class, if I build it properly and I use this information up here, then it kind of makes that job easier in Fantasy Grounds, a lot less mistakes and that sort of thing. So it does that. So that's a race and a class. So I'm trying to think of what else. How about a custom? I don't know if I should do this here. I might make a new chat, but yeah. So I'm gonna do a new chat, and this is going to be for backgrounds. So I'm going to say or ask, do you know what the background, what is those called? Is it when you roll on those tables? Background tables for the D&D 5e rule set for personality traits and that sort of thing. I'll say, do you know what the background tables are? I want to know if it knows about it first. Do you know what the background tables are in the D&D 5e rule set in regards to things like, is that once you kind of know what it knows, then you can start asking it more stuff. In regards to things like the personality traits. Let's see what it says. I want to see if it actually knows. In the 5th edition, yeah, so there's background tables are a set of lists that provide inspiration for players. Yeah, so it knows the definition of it. That's cool. So it kind of knows. So I want to ask it to generate based off that information. So based on the information above, so it has to be right directly above. If you got something in between that, it might throw it off. But based on the information above, can you please generate a custom, or can you please generate custom background tables for a gambler background in the D&D 5e rule set? I'm pretty sure something like this would work well in other like, you know, Pathfinder and stuff. This shouldn't be too hard because this is less, you know, you would definitely want to do it in the Pathfinder or Starfinder format, but basically this is what I'm doing for D&D. So based on the information above, can you please generate a custom background table, or can you please generate the custom background tables? I'll just say background tables instead of custom. For a gambler player character background in the D&D. Can you please basically generate the... Okay, let's see if it actually works. So based on the information above, can you please generate the background tables for a gambler player character background in the D&D 5e rule set? So let's see what it does. Certainly, here are some tables. So personality traits, here we go. So it's probably pulling that off as something that someone else created. I don't know if it's on the DM's Guild or in a forum or wherever, but you have all this stuff here. What's handy about this is when you go to build this in Fantasy Grounds, you'll already have a kind of an idea of what to do. So you can actually change this into a rollable table, which I'll show you shortly on how to do this. So yeah, so each one of these you can turn these into a table that will essentially be importable into Fantasy Grounds. So I want to go ahead and do that. Just try one out and see how it goes. So these tables are a good starting point, blah, blah, blah. Yep. And I like that it tried to, and then I'm going to say, I'm going to go ahead and I'll make a table, but I want to say, can you generate a short backstory for the gambler background above? Can you generate a short backstory? So it'll create like a little blurb for that, just so you have something other than just a bunch of tables. Can you generate a short backstory for the gambler background above? Let's see if it can handle that. Sure, here it is. So you grew up in a small town where gambling was a way of life. Your parents owned a small inn that was popular with travelers. You spend most of your childhood helping out around the place and learning the ins and outs of the gambling business. As you got older, you began to develop a natural talent for card games, blah, blah, blah. So that's really cool. It actually did it. This is not as short as I want it to be, but it's perfect. 3 little paragraphs about it. So when you're building content, you can actually have it do quite a bit. But like I said, I'd keep backgrounds and tables in one conversation, and then I would do like the tables, like just regular tables in another. So let me see if it'll build this table that I want. So I'm going to start with personality traits first. So I'll copy and paste this. And then I'm going to ask it, I'm going to say, can you build a list of, I'll say, dice roll results based on the data above, but use a pipe separator for the first. Say, can you build a list of dice roll results, but use a pipe separator for the first column? Because I don't want it to, if there's any commas in the data that it's giving you, because most of these don't have, but it says, like here it says, I'm always calm and collected, comma, even in the heat of the moment. Well, what'll happen is that it will generate that, but it will create another column for that. We don't want that. So what we want to do is kind of show it what we want. So I'm going to say personality traits. I'm going to actually label this. So I'll just say result. And then I'll put a pipe in there, which is a straight line. And then I'm going to put, actually, it's roll. And I'll put a pipe in there. And now I will say result. So this is kind of defining what we want for the actual table. So once we do this, though, it'll know what we are after. So what we do is go 0, 1, and we'll put a pipe there instead of a comma, because commas are used in sentences, and when you're building tables, it can get very annoying if it keeps creating commas, because the commas will interfere with the parsing of the table when you use the import tool. So there's just kind of some things you'll learn through experience and time about Fantasy Grounds, is that if you don't do something specific ways, it's not going to turn out the way you hope. And this is something that it's a combination of experience, knowledge, and trial and error. So you have to kind of get used to that. So so what we're going to do is, here's the roll and the results for the personality table. But I don't want to say table, because what it will do is it will create an actual table. I just want it to create a list similar to this, but I want to actually be able to, create something like this, but for the other things. So what I'm going to do is, can you build a list of results based on the data above, but use a pipe separator for the first column? And I'm just going to do that just so it kind of knows what I'm talking about. And I want to make sure I define it first. So let's see what happens here. Yeah, this is exactly what I wanted right here. So it's going to generate these now based off of what I told it before. So now I can do this for all the rest. I can, I can say, hey, make a, for the gambler. I got to make sure I add that in there. So I'm gonna ask it again. I'm gonna say, can you generate can you generate can you generate a short backstory? What did I say? Can you, based on the information above, that's what I wanted. Based on the information above, can you please generate the personality traits, or actually we'll just say the bonds list. I don't want to say the bonds results. If I say table, it's going to make a table. I don't want that. For a gambler, player, character, can you, based on the information above, can you please generate the bond results? And we'll see if it understands what I'm talking about. Yep. There's all the bonds. So this is exactly what you want, how you want to train this thing. So now that it knows what you want, it can pull off the previous conversation, and it knows kind of what you're doing. Yeah, so it even talks about how these are used. Okay, so what I'm going to do is take this information. These are bonds. So I'm going to copy and paste this in. So copy, and then I'm going to go to Fantasy Grounds. And if you wanted to build your backgrounds and such, you can. So let's go to backgrounds, and I'm going to, this is for the gambler, so we'll put gambler. And then I want to paste this thing in here before I grab the rest of that. So we can put the lore here, and then this is one of the tables. So what we'll do is we'll call this is the bonds. We'll just use this as an example. I'm going to do Control B for bold. And then for the lore, we want to use that previous content that it generated. So if I scroll up, it's going to say, here's the backstory. So grab that information, put this in there. So this helps you when you're building content. It'll be a lot quicker to do so. So there's that. So this is the lore that you're going to provide your players. And then I'm going to go ahead and format this with a Control 2, because that's actually what makes the header. Or you can do Control B for bold. So we're just going to do that. But see, now this data here, this actual bonds result, I need to build the table itself. So I'll just take this information, and I'm going to go to tables now, which is in the campaign data. Go to tables. And it does have an import function. You don't necessarily have to build it, but you have to kind of know how to use it. So if I go to import table, I'm going to hit control, basically Control P or whatever. And then I want to get rid of these extra spaces, because we don't want, if you have extra spaces, it's going to create those as blank. So you got to be careful when you're doing that. And then you want to say down here is it's delimited. We're going to use the pipe, so that'll separate the rest. for the row. Is the column headers in the first row? Yes. Table ranges in the first column? Yes. So there's 5 results. I'm going to say gambler bonds table. Let's call it that, and then hit import. And that's exactly what it did. So we created a table, and now what you would do with this table is you would link this in the bottom here. So you would put this link in here so that it's accessible. So when your players are building a character and they select this background, they'll have access to all the different tables. And then I actually don't need this anymore. I can delete this. So this is just, you do that with all the 5 or 4 or 5 different table results. And then you'd have a pretty well-rounded thing. And then you could add the skills that come with this and anything that goes with it. So let's see what this is, if we can create that. So I want to go back to this. And so here's the gambler. Let's see if we can make it generate. See, it knows about the tables. It gave us those tables. Now I'm going to ask it to, can you please write out the official D&D 5e background data in the official D&D 5e format. So let's see what it does. Change that. We'll see. Let's see, I didn't say that. Yeah, I didn't give it the parameters, but I just kind of just did the generic so I could see if it actually can read this. And it's given me the definition. So it definitely knows how to do it. So now what I'm going to do is ask the same question, but I'm going to ask it for the gambler. So I'm going to say, can you please write out the gambler background in the official D&D 5e background data in the official D&D 5e format. We'll see if it actually can handle that. Yep. So here's it's giving us the backstory, the background, which is kind of cool because here we go. So it's tool proficiencies, no extra languages, your equipment, feature is gambling den. You have a natural talent for gambling. You're well known. Yeah, really cool. So this is now it's building the table. So now it's giving me everything. So this is really cool. So this would be the data that you can paste on that background sheet that I was working on. So this is really cool. So it can really do a lot of things based on what kind of input you put into it. So it's writing the background for the official D&D 5e rule set format, and this is for a gambler. So that could be something that you might want to include in your game. And I'm pretty sure there's content out there already that's similar for the gambler, but at least it already kind of knows what to do. So I want to try another background and not even have anything based on anything I've already written other than the definition files. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to substitute the question. And this time I'm going to, can you please write out I'll say Squire background, or should that be a background? Nah, that's kind of shitty. I don't think a Squire is a good background. How about that's what I'm trying to think. What kind of background is not actually in existence, but it would be interesting to play? So anybody watching, if you have any suggestions, let me know. What kind of background would you like to see this generate, if at all? Because that would be interesting. And D&D 5e, of course, but it doesn't have to be D&D. It's just as long as it has some kind of fantasy element to it. So I'm trying to think. So instead of a gambler, how about a pirate? Yeah, but that's kind of already done, right? We can do a pirate, but I think that's already kind of out there. Gambler is probably out there already too. So trying to think of something unique, like maybe I don't know, something related. Maybe is there a different kind of pirate background? Like, I don't know. Space pirate. Maybe we can specify, and it's probably already out there though from the new content that's out there. I'm trying to think. Let's do a yeah, exactly. That's yeah. I'm trying to think of something that would be interesting. How about a miner, like a gold miner or something like that? A miner background, is that a thing? Is that an actual background? A miner or a gemologist or something that has to do with... Yeah, let's try a miner. Let's see. A miner background. Because I don't think there is an official one. There's something that has those elements. Yeah, I haven't seen anything yet either. Let's see what happens. So can you please write out a miner, not the, but a... Because it hasn't been defined yet. A miner based background in the official. Okay, let's see if it can handle it. Certainly, here's the miner thing. So you come from a long line of miners. You grew up in the mines. You're skilled in the use of pickaxe and shovels. You have a strong back from, yeah, very cool. So you're proficient in pickaxe and shovel, no extra languages, you got some clothes, feature deep mines, you're familiar with the deep mines, know how to get around them. So this might be something you'd want to pick for like a person that works underground, you know. This would be a kind of a cool, it doesn't always have to be a dwarf, but it does have some dwarven-like qualities, or any race that kind of depends on mining for their livelihood. So this is cool. Yeah, it's given me everything. So this, it does, true, yeah. It's pretty cool. So it's actually made the entire thing. The flaws, bonds, flaws, all that stuff. So this is really neat. I'm really happy with the results. So this ChatGPT does quite a, yeah, kobold miner. But see, that's adding a race to the mix. So yes, it could be used for a kobold, but if you say to generate a kobold miner, it would probably give you this, but with a few variations. But if we build a kobold, then what we do is combine that. So we'd make the kobold race, or maybe a sub-race of a kobold, and then give them this miner background. But yeah, it would work for a kobold for sure. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It does quite a bit. It's useful, and you know, because it's not just Fantasy Grounds, right? It can help you research things, and then also, if you're doing PDFs, it would help for that. So if you're making a custom content, you know, that's the thing. But the real thing is to learn how Fantasy Grounds works, on how it imports the data. So I could create a miner here. So let me add another thing. So we'll call this the miner, and then copy and paste the data that's from here. So let's bring all this in, and then go to Fantasy Grounds, paste that in here. Yeah, so it gives you a pretty good start, and then you can just build the tables by importing this data and using the tool to format them for you, so you don't have to type all that out manually. So here's the background for the miner. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I really like the results we're getting with this background. So like some of the stuff I did earlier wasn't as helpful, but at least it gives you a start. So this is really cool. Now, for the sake of argument, let's go back to the race thing. So that was backgrounds. Okay, so this is the conversation that I had to make a race. So I want it to create, I want to do a spider kind of thing, like, actually I want to do NPCs. I think this is where I wanted to. NPCs, that's backstory. I want to do the race NPC thing. Okay, so this is essentially the kind of content that it can build based off of giving it the NPC data. So what I want to do is ask it to build an NPC for me. So let's build that kobold miner that you had mentioned before, but in an NPC format. So I want to take and say, can you please build a miner, something like that. I'll say, can you please build... Actually, I don't want to use this text. I want to start over. So I'm going to say, can you please generate a kobold miner using the official D&D 5e NPC monster format, question mark. And then what we'll do is we'll build on this. So this is really generic, but we'll see, can you please generate a male or female, we'll do a female kobold miner. And then I'll say, can you please generate a kobold, a CR, we'll say CR1. We want it to be a little bit more advanced than just a commoner. So can you please format with themed equipment and traits? So I'm going to kind of push it a little bit. Instead of just making a generic stat block, now I'm going to say, hey, can you generate a CR level 1, CR level 1, not one level. A CR level 1, because we wanted to have a little bit of oomph to her. Female kobold miner using the official NPC monster format, comma, and with themed equipment and traits. So we wanted to have some stuff that's themed for the actual rule set and for the mining operations. So we're making an NPC based on an earlier conversation that we had about making a miner background for a player. This is going to be just an NPC, CR level 1, female kobold, and we're asking it to use the official D&D NPC monster stat block. I forgot to put that in there. Format, and with any themed equipment. So we'll see what it does. We'll see if it can handle this. Certainly. So here it goes. So it's doing a female kobold miner, small humanoid, lawful evil. She's wearing leather. Got 5 hit points. There's her stats. Her dex is pretty high. Sunlight sensitivity, which makes sense because she's underground, and that's also, I think, the kobold trait. This has her dagger, short bow, equipment, pickaxe, lantern, torches, yep. So she has the right stuff. And here's a little backstory. So that's pretty handy. So that's actually very quick to create an NPC. Now, I want to take this data and see if I can import it without too many problems. So I'll go ahead and copy and paste this data. And then go to Fantasy Grounds. And this time, instead of a background, let's go with NPCs. And there is an import tool in the D&D 5e rule set for NPCs. So I want to hit Control V. And then what I want to do is right click. I'm going to just click on the wand because I want to see what the formatting is. I want to take this backstory and move it over here to the right because that's not something I want it to parse. So I want to take that out because this stuff here will confuse Fantasy Grounds, so I don't want that. So this equipment list and the backstory are going to be separated. And then I'll say, let's see, shift, I'll say kobold miner, and then I'm going to make that minter. Let's try it, spell it right. So kobold miner, and then I'm going to go ahead and make that bold. Oops, not everything. Just the header. Okay, there we go. Okay, so hopefully, the only thing that might goof up on is the strength and stuff, but I think it should be okay. It looks like it's right because it has a period after each one of these things. And then I got to make sure I remove this stuff down here because that will throw it off. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is click import. Yeah, it kind of worked, but it did not pick up the stats because they weren't in the correct format. So it has to be in a certain format. So this is actually problematic if you don't have the correct format. But this is an easy enough fix. Like everything else is right except for the stat block. So that's easy just to fill these in. But if you want it to work correctly, those have to be, generated or set up the right way. So let me see if we can fix that. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to ask it to rewrite this data, but use the Fantasy Grounds format. So rewrite the data above using the Fantasy Grounds parse format. Now, if it builds XML, I don't want that, so we'll see what it does. It might try to build an XML format, but I'm asking it to rewrite the data above using the the official Fantasy Grounds parsing format. So it's pretty close, or you know what? I can do it for D&D Beyond. So rewrite the above using the official D&D Beyond NPC monster stat block format. Okay, that's probably worked better. If I say Fantasy Grounds, it's probably going to give me the rewrite. I want to make sure that's correct. Okay, so now that we have that in, let's see what it'll do. Okay, here's a revised stat block. So it's going to rewrite it, but it's going to do it in the format. I don't know if that still doesn't look right. We'll see. So we'll see what happens. It might also be because it's putting it in this data code format, so that might be something to do with it. So I'm only going to copy the actual the stat block information, not the backstory and equipment. So let me grab that. Oops, I didn't mean to do that far. This looks similar or the same as above, so I don't know what's going on here, but let me see. So let's try this again. So I'm going to go to import text, Control V. I think it might be, let me right click. So this format here kind of looks like the D&D Beyond format. I'll have to take a look at that and it's saying this, but I know there's a filter in here for D&D Beyond, so we'll see if it actually works. No, so it's still something's not quite right with the stat block information. So what I'm going to do to fix this problem is I'm going to go to the D&D Beyond and copy and paste the stat block out of there and see what it looks like. Oh, I think this is the count I want to use. No, that one. Yeah, I think that's it. Yep. So what I want to do is let's try a kobold stat block just to see what it looks like. So here's a monster NPC. Let's take a look at that. Okay, so this is the format. And see, as you can see here, this is what the stat block is supposed to look like. So let me grab that. And what you'll do is paste this back into the client that we were using. which is this GPT thing, the ChatGPT. So what I'm going to say is, let's see. Let's take a look at that. So see here, all the stats are written out like this instead of like that. So that's the difference. So let's see. I know it will take this one more than likely. So what we're going to do is, first I'm going to just give it that information. Yep. I'm just plugging that in for right now, just to drop it off. Now it's actually creating the stat block for it with the corrections. But see, I don't want it. Here's a corrected and complete stat block. So I don't want it corrected because that's going to break. That's going to actually break the parsing tool. So what I want to say is, or ask is, will you write a stat block in the format above for the Cobalt Miner? So first I'll paste this format in here, hit Shift, and I'll say, please rewrite the stat block for A Cobalt Miner NPC using the example here. So what I'm going to do is call this example. I want it to tag and have that there. So I'll say example, because this is the format I want. I don't want the code format. This is not exactly what is needed. We'll see if it keeps that formatting or not. So please rewrite the stat block, but for a Cobalt Miner NPC using the example above here. I'll just say example here. Let's see if it works. Is it going to mess up the stat block? Yeah, see, I don't want it to do that. So this is what I'm saying. If you have a thread and it's starting to use all this code, it's going to keep trying to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the question above again, but I'm going to ask it, do not, don't write it out like a code. So I'm going to say, please rewrite the stat block above I'll say this is an example. I'm going to say, please rewrite the stack above here, but do not put into code format. Use the formatting provided here. So you can kind of tell it not to do it. So, but okay, it says use the example here, but do not put into the code form. See if it can handle that, because it's doing the code, and I don't want code. I just want text. Yeah, here we go. So I just had to tell it not to do that anymore. So what I'm going to have it do is rewrite this. Oh, it did. It did the Cobalt Miner. That's great. Yep, that's exactly what I wanted. Just like that. And if you have it write it this way, when you go to paste it into Fantasy Grounds, it should work and shouldn't be a big issue. So I'll try that again, but this time with the correct formatting. I don't know if this doesn't look right still, but we'll see if the code made a difference or not. Yeah, I don't know. It's not doing it this. I want it to use it. I'll say please rewrite the stat block above, but use this provided data. Can you force the stat block to roll as point by or standard array? Probably. I'll have to check it out. But I want to get this part right because it won't parse into Fantasy Grounds unless it gives us the right. Rewrite the stat block above. Once I get that part figured out, then what will happen is provided formatting here. Please rewrite the stat block above, but use the ability score example provided for the formatting here. And I'm going to say example. I want to call this because this is what I want it to use. I don't want it to use its own thing. I'll just say example. Oh, it's already writing it. Oh, damn it. Oh well, we'll see what it does. Yeah, see, it's still trying to. Yeah, that's not what I want. But yeah, I can try that. Yeah, let's see. I want to see if this works first before I go on. So, because I know that this is not quite what Fantasy Grounds likes to see. So, if I close this and go back to importing it, let's see if it actually will. Pick this up or not again. Because I know that this format here, it's probably not going to work. Because generally, what you'll see is the strength, and then this stuff will be underneath it, like that. And this is what it wants to see. You know, it doesn't want to look at. Yeah, if this is not going to work, so you'd have to reformat this in every case. So if you don't tell it to do it right, it's going to be a pain in the butt. So this is kind of what the formatting would look like if you were going to use the Fantasy Grounds, because it reads it a certain way, and if you don't have it, it's going to suck. And it's just going to keep giving you the wrong stuff. Let's see. So intelligence. Yeah, so this is the formatting that I was hoping that it would do. So what I might do later is tell it, hey, use this format. Don't use your own. So this is what I'm looking for. It's something more like this, because this is closer to the official Fantasy Grounds format. This is a lot closer, and then I want to get rid of the equipment and the backstory. So this would go on the right-hand side, and I would take this out. And then over here, Cobalt Miner. So it is a little bit something you have to train it to do, because it'll just start doing its own thing. And that thread that I'm working with is too convoluted. It's still trying to pull from previous conversations. All right, let's see if that works. So import. No. So something's not quite right with the formatting, but essentially this is kind of what you'd want. And maybe it needs a space in between these. So maybe do a carriage return in between each one of these. That way it knows that it's a return and not just a space, that sort of thing. So that the formatting is what breaks if you don't do it. But yeah, I'll go ahead and check out. Let's see. Can you please can you please generate a kobold miner using the standard array? I'll say a random. That's what I wanted. Can you write an official monster NPC stat block using a random standard array ability score selection. Can you write an official can you write an official NPC, an official D&D Beyond format monster NPC stat block using a random standard array ability score selection method? Once you get an idea of the limitations and that sort of thing, that's when you'll get better at this. So, can you write an official D&D Beyond formatted? Can you write an official D&D Beyond monster NPC format stat block using a random standard array ability score selection? Hopefully. Okay, so here's a Goblin Bandit. Yeah, see, it's still writing it this way. I don't want that, but oh well. But it looks like it just kind of, if you look at a Goblin Bandit, I mean, it probably has different ability scores than that. So I'll do this again. I'll have it regenerate, but I'll see if it actually changes these numbers. So if you want it to repeat the last command, you're going to say regenerate response. And since you have the word random in there, I hope it actually randomizes that. The other thing you can do is, if you see, like, if the armor class is not right, like sometimes it won't calculate for the armor class, it'll just give you the basic thing and it won't consider the dex bonus. So this looks right, but if you see that, you can ask it to modify based on the ability scores. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So, oh, it's doing a different creature. So what I'll do is I'll ask it to redo this, but using the the standard array. I'll test it to rewrite. Because I don't know if it's truly randomizing it. So rewrite. Let's see. Rewrite the stat block above using a random standard array ability score selection. Ability. Okay, we'll see what it does. Okay, so the null tracker from above. Let's see, 16, 13. Okay, so these are the scores here. So if I go up, yeah, it did. It changed those. So those are different. You don't have to have the same ability scores if you ask it to do that. And then actually, sometimes it'll even write different actions and stuff depending on how random it is. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So there are ways to write D&D stat blocks without going through all this. So this is actually previous attempts at doing this, and I can see it's still trying to. Yeah, see, it's trying to put this in this format here. I'm wondering if this would actually work because this is not in code format, so maybe that'll help. So let's see. So this is for an assassin, and I'll see if this works, because it could be that the code is throwing in or inserting different parameters. Let's see if that works or not. So this, like that. And see, this isn't going to work already because it's got these colons, and it won't. If you have colons for the features like this evasion and all that, it's not going to parse that correctly. It has to be a period. So you have to make sure that it doesn't put these semicolons in here. And I told it to not do that before, so it does respect that. So we'll see if this actually parses or not. That. Yeah, see, the stats didn't turn. Yeah, it didn't parse correctly because of formatting. So that's a big part of this, is that you have to get it to parse with the correct format. So if you send it something that actually works, that actually is the format you want, then it makes it much easier to deal with than trying to guess and play around and tell it not to do it, all this other stuff. So I've kind of messed around with this, but what the best way I think that I've known to do this is to say, can you, this is a whole new thread, by the way, generate an official D&D 5e, generate an official D&D 5e stat block for a CR level 1 kobold miner. So can you generate, yeah, I gotta make sure I spell that correct. So what happens is, if you when you have a conversation, it goes on long enough, it starts pulling in a bunch of other stuff, and you don't, because it memorizes what you talked about before. In some cases that's helpful, in other cases it's not. So just let me see if this helps, because it's a whole brand new. Certainly. So here's a stat block. Let's see if this is, yeah, so that's exactly how I wanted to write it. You see how it actually goes vertically instead of, or it goes horizontally. So this is exactly what I was looking for. This is the format. So what was happening is, since I had that thread going, I introduced a whole bunch of other crap, and it kind of makes it, I put minter instead of miner. So what I can do is rewrite the stat block above, but fix the spelling of minter to miner, and fix the stat block and create ability score variations from the standard array ability score selection method. So now what we'll do is we'll rewrite it. We'll have it fix my screw ups in my typing. And what we'll do is ask it to rewrite the stats. Instead of these, hopefully it'll rewrite them different, with some variation. Let's do this again. Yep, so Cobalt Miner, it's correct. Let's see if the stats are the same. So 8, 14, 10, 8, 8, 8. So 8, 14, 10. Yeah, it didn't do it. So I'd have to ask it to again, but I'd probably a separate one. Oh, now it is writing that. So here's with the ability score. Oh yeah, so it did. It actually did 2 versions. It did the original, it revised it, and then it actually rewrote it in the standard array. So it did 2 things instead of 1. And that's because of the way I asked it 2 things. So you got to be kind of careful how you ask it. So now that that's the correct format, and it's a kind of what do you call it? It's written in such a way so it's not the same. Let's do that. So Control Copy, and then I'm going to go to the Fantasy Grounds. Go to the Import tool. Control V. Let's see what we got here. So yeah, this is the format you want right here. That's how it should be written. And then here are the actions, and they do have the period after, so that's exactly what you want. Now let's see if this works. And what? Why did that not work? I thought that this was the format, to be honest with you. Because it's normally... Oh, I think these go underneath, though. Damn it. Okay, well, it's close. So let me go here. Yeah, so this isn't quite right still, but it's close enough. But you can see that it actually does everything else correctly. So I don't know. It's something to do with the way the stat blocks are formatted in the tool. So I've had it work before where it's actually correct. So let me try Fantasy Grounds. Let's see what it does here. So I'm going to try that. So I'm going to go to this. I'm going to say rewrite the stat block above, but use the official Fantasy Grounds ability score format for the D&D 5e rule set. Let's see if it can handle that. Brooks, what rule set? Rule set. And this should be official. Rewrite the stat block, the NPC stat block above, but use the official Fantasy Grounds ability score. We'll see if it can handle that. Nope. What the hell's going on here? No. So it does not know what the hell I'm talking about. It's probably because it's got 2 different stat blocks in there. So what I want to do is I'm going to edit this. And I'm going to say, can you generate using the official Fantasy Grounds D&D 5e stat block for a CR level 1 Kobold Miner, not Mentor. It's having problems. So let me copy and paste this. It's the actual generator's having issues. So I'm going to go ahead and refresh the page and go to this thing. Get this, and let's see if it's fixed yet. Okay. Yeah, see, this is not what I wanted. This is the actual HTML, XML format. This would work if you're working in the XML format, but I don't want it in XML. So what I can say is I can actually, maybe I can reword it and tell it to not put it into code. So let's try this again. So I'm asking it not to create the code format. Yeah, this is what it looks like in the XML stuff. I don't want that. I mean, it would work if I was using it somewhere else. Okay, here we go. So let's see what the stats. Yeah, see, this is closer to what I was looking for the stats. We'll see if that actually works or not. I mean, this should be right. I don't know what's causing the import tool to trip incorrectly, but let's see what happens. So if I go and copy this data, copy, go back in here, go to the import tool, and going to I'm not going to mess with it because before I was right clicking on it. So let me go. Yeah, it's still not working right. So I'm not sure exactly what I'm doing wrong, but there's something that I'm missing here that I got it to work before. So it's something minor. That's all it is. No pun intended. Cobalt minor. But I think that's enough playing around. You get the idea of the things you might go through when you're using AI to create content. And a lot of it comes down to the formatting. And I'm pretty sure I'll figure it out when I'm not doing this live. And it's just a matter of getting used to how this stuff works and getting used to the limitations of the AI tool. And as far as I know, this is free for now. It's in beta. It's the OpenAI ChatGPT. It was trained using data from the internet all the way from 2021 on back, so it goes a ways back. You can use it on other rule sets. I don't know how it formats for Fantasy Grounds. Obviously, there's a few minor issues, and there's some things that I'm probably not doing right. But I need to give it a good template from whatever data sets that I'm using. So you can create. So like this is the Fantasy Grounds NPC data that I've fed it. And now, I've given it, different things. Like here's Drog, Iron Fist. And then I said to, add traits to it and all this other stuff. So it does a lot of the work for you. It just seems like something throws off the parsing. And this one wouldn't work anyways because it has the colons instead of periods. So you got to have a certain format. Otherwise, it's gonna throw it off and gonna irritate you. So like this looks right. This Spider Queen thing. So let me see if that imports correctly. So I don't know why it's not working, but that's her backstory. So let me go with this, and let me see if that imports correctly into Fantasy Grounds. So if I go to the import text and hit Control V, it looks like, these are, it's got a period in there. That's right. Okay, we'll see if that actually imports. Yeah, so this worked correctly. So it has something to do with, and this is a complex NPC. The other ones I was doing they weren't as complex. So this is correct. This is exactly what I wanted to see. And then for the backstory part of it, I could have included that before I imported it. So let me grab that. It does work. It's just a matter of how you input it. So here's the backstory, which is something you might want it to write, but I would actually have it write it separately. That way it's not going to include it and everything. And then, let's see, I got to grab the rest of the backstory. So here's the rest of it. Yeah, so I had it correct. I just got to go back and see what I did before. But so this is the backstory for this particular NPCs. This is fairly complex. I mean, this is not a normal stat block. It's very custom. I asked it to make a spider folk queen, not the Drow Lolth one, but the actual, just a anthropomorphic creature essentially that looks like a spider. And a humanoid. And then now I'm going to import this again. I want to see if this is, and instead of calling it Spiderfolk Queen, her name is Spidera. And then in parentheses, I will put Spiderfolk Queen, because that's what she is. So Spidera, and then import. See what it looks like. Yeah, that's perfect. This is exactly what I wanted to see. So this is the correct formatting for the NPC. It looks right. So yeah, there's the proficiency bonus of +3. You can, if you put this on the combat tracker when you're building these, you can test it out. So I'm going to drag this NPC on here. You go to the offense, and yeah, so web sense, web walker, multi-attack. Here's attack rolls. Here's her web attack or web bolt, web shield. And then on the other tab, this is where her, the NPC stuff is. So this is really good. So I can say up here, I can edit this a little bit, put a picture. I can link a picture if I wanted to. It just depends on what your needs are. But this is really cool. I like it. So let's see. I'm going to put background here and then enter and then hit Control-2 to kind of make this look nicer. So this is really, really well done. And this is exactly what you want to see when it's done. So whatever formatting I was using in that thread was correct. So I'll have to go back and look at what questions I asked, but let me see that. I gotta know. So this is the D&D Beyond. Let's see, what did I do? What was different here? So what I did is I want to see the questions I asked it. Can you please rewrite the stat block above? I kept saying that, so I need to know. Okay, can you please do okay. This is what I asked. Can you please generate a random dwarf NPC with a CR level of 3 using the NPC formatting template data and the official D&D 5e monster stat block format? So that's the question right there. D&D 5e player character format. Yeah, so maybe I need to simplify what I'm asking it, because I gave it this Fantasy Grounds NPC parsing data. And then I asked it to, the first thing I did was asked it to generate basically a race. They're called the Elixians. Made a whole race, and it was actually right. And then I asked it to do that. Can you please generate a random dwarf NPC with the CR level 3 using the NPC format? Let me see if that works again. So I'm going to hit edit copy, edit paste, but I'm going to make this a minor. So can you please generate a random minor, a random dwarf minor NPC with a CR level of 3 using the NPC formatting template data and the official D&D monster stat block format. Let's see if it can handle this. Yep. Look at Grom Ironforge, human. And that looks correct with the stat block here. Yep. This looks promising for sure. So there's a challenge, there's a resistance to poison, there's the combat training, stone cutting. Yeah, so this is exactly what I'd want to hope to see. So he has a pick, which makes sense. It's themed for the miner. It has some light hammers, which makes sense. There's some reactions, a parry. Yeah, this is cool. So let me see if there's any other. Proceed. Yeah, it's trying to write again. Huh. Why did it change the formatting? Huh, interesting. This is kind of what we're looking for here. Yep. So it's writing it 2 different ways. How weird. So it's rewriting this above, and it's giving the reactions, the toughness. It's got the period here, which is what you want. And so let me copy and paste this, see if it parses correctly. So if I hit Control Copy, I go into Fantasy Grounds, see if it parses correctly. So if I go to NPCs and the import tool, hit Control V, I want to see if it actually imports it correctly, and it does. So yeah, that's the correct format. So once it knows the correct format, you can keep building off that, and that's what I was saying earlier, that you don't want to do any other formatting or any craziness, because it'll keep pulling all that stuff in, and then eventually it ends up being wrong, or it slips something else in there that's not right. So you want to make a separate thread for asking questions. So in this case, this is a Fantasy Grounds NPC discussion thread. And then I have one for D&D 5e tables. And you can actually build tables in here. So these are deterrent tables. And I kept getting that, this format here, which I didn't want. And eventually I told it to stop doing that. Now it started to actually create tables based on this format. So here's a list of 8. Yeah, this is closer to what I wanted. So what I want to say is, what I want to do is say, here's a table, for instance. So I want to go, can you generate a D&D 5e result list like the above example, but for a mining mishap. So there might be a mishap for mining mishaps. So maybe there's a mishap table that you can use during your game. And if you're underground in a mining situation, this might actually work. And then I want to say, and only use 6 results. So I want to tell it not, I don't want 10. I just want 6. So let's see if can you generate a D&D 5e result as a result list like the above example, but for mining mishaps, and only use 6 results? Question mark. Okay, so we'll see what it does. Sure, here's a list of 6 mining mishaps. So here are your results, and it's only going to give you 6. And if you noticed, I trained it to use the pipe, because if you use commas, there's too many commas in sentences, and that throws off the parsing. So what I'm going to do is copy this, go into Fantasy Grounds, go to Tables. Where is that? Tables, and import. And it is a pipe. It is the first row. It's delimited. The tables, yep, so that looks right. And what I'll call this is a mining mishap table. So that's pretty, it's pretty basic. And hit import, and there we go. Why did it do 1d5 plus 1? How weird is that? Oh, let's see. That's because when I imported, I didn't do it right. So what I want to do is go to roll with a pipe, and then result, because it took that first row and it didn't know what to do with it. So now I paste in that stuff and call it a mining mishap table 2. Okay, import. Yep, so there we go. So there's so you can roll on it. See what it rolls. It says a cave-in traps your group and requires time and resources to dig yourself out. So that's pretty cool. So you can, it'll make the results, the roll, and then you can decide like how you want it to output. Pretty cool. So yes, you can do tables, but if you say table in the actual text here, it will do this formatted table, which you may not want. So if you're doing a PDF or something, that would be good. But if you're doing Fantasy Grounds, you kind of want it more in a text format so you can use it. And again, I use the separator, the pipe. Instead of a semicolon or a comma or a period, I use this as a separator because it's less likely to appear in any text that you're using. So when you go into Fantasy Grounds and you go to import a table, you can say, if you have a simple table where it's just numbers and sentences, that's fine. But if you're going to have a delimited one, I would use a pipe instead of a comma, colon, or semicolon. And that cuts out a lot of hassle. And you can do this in Excel with a spreadsheet and such, but this is so much easier. But again, I just wanted to kind of show you some of the things that we've done. I think I'm done with making videos for the ChatGPT for a while until I discover something better and new. But the user showed me this the other day, and I'm really grateful that he did that. But anyhow, take care, everyone. Like I said, the links will be in the description. Sorry this took so long, but I wanted to show you the trial and errors and all that stuff that you can go through when you're using the tool. So if you missed any of this, you can go back and watch. You can watch me fumble around and make mistakes and stuff. But nonetheless, so you just feed it information. You can ask it if it knows the content first before you start working with it. Like, do you know what the D&D 5e, spell progression table is? Can you build it for me and those sort of things? And then start asking it the questions you want. That way the information gets built over time. But like I said, try to stay on topic, because if you start asking it a bunch of things, then it's going to include that in the rest of its results, and it may not work for you. It might throw the parsing off in Fantasy Grounds. So, all right, take care, everyone. You have a good week, and I'll see you around the community. And don't forget that this month is our Traveler 2E Mongoose month. So if you're in a Traveler, we're going to have a couple symposiums. We got some classes, and we also have some guests and some